Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome to the show we like to call Transfer in Long Shots. Sharad, I am very excited today, and I'll tell you why. I won't like throw it to you like the usual. But today we have someone from the real estate sector, and I love real estate because everyone in our country, has an opinion on it, and that's something which touches all of our lives. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Saurabh Tyagi from PropChk. Hey Saurabh, how's it going?
All well, buddy. Thanks for having me over.
Pleasure is all ours. Saurabh, so let's talk about you a bit before we talk about PropChk. Would love to, get a basic sense of your journey and, how you ended up in this particular problem solution framework of looking at home inspections in a very targeted and quote unquote business way.
Yeah, sure. So after graduating from Roorkee, IIT Roorkee, in 2005, I started working in the real estate sector. It just so happened to me, real estate was just by chance, by accident. Worked for a few consulting
So you're an electrical engineer, right?
I'm an electrical engineer,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
An electrical engineer who cannot even change his tube light at home. So yeah, that's the kind of an engineer I am. So yeah, so after graduating, it was consulting was the fancy domain to be in, and I kind of found my way into one of the IPCs, international property consultancies, and worked there for a couple of years, and then realized what we're doing there is very simple. It's all common sense. So while that's in 2008 was the first time that this entrepreneurship bug actually bit me, and that's where I founded a small consulting firm, a very boutique consulting firm, doing everything that any of these fancy IPCs were doing, like feasibility reports, valuations, and all. Ran that for 6 years, made some good money, and then tried my hands at a development project, a real estate development project in the holiday home segment, which unfortunately tanked and failed drastically. So went back to the job circuit, worked for a couple of big firms like Religare, the Tribeca. It's the exclusive Indian representative of the Trump organization. So worked there for a couple of years, and then finally I once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur, like they say, So I had to get back, and that's when I happened to meet this friend called Uttam Reddy. He is now my partner,
Right.
And we got introduced through a common friend from ISB. So I mean, none of us went to ISB, but we had a common friend who was from ISB, and he introduced us, and it was so basically Uttam's idea to he's a fairly successful developer, real estate developer based out of Hyderabad, and that's when we met up and we discussed this, we thrashed this out, and we're like, yeah, I mean, so my folks are like settled in Canada, and so we bought a property there, and I was like, what is this home inspection? There was something called home inspection report, and for which my dad had to pay around $600, and I was like, why is it needed? Is it like a mandate or something? Like, no, it's not a mandate. It's just the way it is. That's how things run here. So we saw that report, and there were obviously a lot of defects in the house that were found out by the inspector. We submitted that report to the seller, and things were so transparent there, so fair in that country, that the seller ended up giving us a discount of 40,000 Canadian dollars. So I was like, wow, man, we just paid $600 for this report, and we got a 40,000 discount on the property, which was unbelievable. And I was like, wow, this is great. And then I did some looking up on whether this thing exists in India or not. And unfortunately, no one had actually heard of this concept called home inspection. So we kind of thrashed this idea together, Uttam and I, in 2020. Mid of 2020 is when we started stitching things together, right, planning things out, as to how to go about this. And then 2022 January is when we hit our first revenue, and from there it's just the journey has been phenomenal, unbelievable, and that's the early days. That's the story. And what sort of skill set do you sort of need to flush out a credible home inspection report, right? Like, is it sort of engineering, understanding of deep engineering, a mix of plumbing, carpentry, I don't know, a bunch of things, right? So how do you sort of assemble that kind of skill set? Is it entirely driven through employees, or are there sort of some templatization, etc., that can be done? Yeah, so it's just you need to have a basic knowledge of civil engineering, of course. So there are multiple elements that come together to build a house. Right from your floorings, ceilings, let's say walls, electrical, plumbing, doors, windows, the kitchen cabinets, sanitary ware. All these things come together, and that's when a functional house is built. So a civil engineer with maybe a couple of years experience in the quality check process would pretty much be capable enough to conduct such inspections. And of course, we kind of topped it up with technology to make it seamless, to make it error-free, and to make it quick. So we developed a mobile application, with the help of which our inspectors would conduct this inspection with almost 95% accuracy. Mm-hmm. So and of course the reports are instantly generated, so there is no lag there. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to conduct an inspection, where the inspector would check for a 2 or 3 BHK apartment. Yeah. The inspector would obviously it's a manual process where the inspector has to visit the property physically. Yeah. And look at every nook and corner of the house, and follow the checklist, follow the protocols, follow the process as defined in the mobile application. And that's it. He just has to fill up his entries. If there is a defect, the picture is clicked with the mobile application itself. So at the end of the inspection, the report is instantly generated. We send it for validation, and then it's sent out to the customer. So,
interesting. So, yeah. I mean, this the mobile app that you mentioned. I mean, I'm guessing it obviously has like the checklist and the framework all laid out, and there's a fair amount of data input that goes on ground from your team, and the report generation is templatized, and it kind of there's automation that happens there. Is there also the actual process of validation or inspection or diagnostics? Does the app or the software or any platform that you have created also play a role in that? Or is it more of data entry, optimization, and efficiency of the end product or the report that comes out?
Yeah, so validation happens offline. It's not in real time. But yeah, we are working to incorporate some AI elements into our mobile application, so that not for the purpose of validation, but more so for the purpose of automation. Where we can just take the camera, move it around the entire house, wherever the defects are there, it could automatically capture it and annotate it to the right defect. But yeah, I mean, we cannot really get rid of the human intervention there, because a lot of this inspection is done with the help of some equipment and tools that need to be used. So that's where we got to take readings. For example, we use the multimeter to check for voltage if it is within the tolerance limit. Or we used an RCD socket tester to check for neutral and the earthing related issues. We use a right angle scale to check for corners, whether they're in right angle or not. We use a thermal camera, to check for dampness, which is not visible to the naked eye. So, these kind of things, of course, because of the requirement of additional tools for conducting this inspection, the mobile application cannot replace the human skills altogether. But yes.
But is it like an integrated or embedded ecosystem, in the sense that I'm assuming that you have different set of devices, right? And I mean, some of them are mechanical, some of them are electronics based, and obviously there'll be some sort of data capture. But I mean, effectively, is that data capture like through some sort of an API pull coming into your backend, or is that something which the guy on the ground supposed to like manually upload? Or I mean, how does that?
Yeah. So it's right at the moment. It's quite manual,
right?
Where he takes the reading, he clicks a picture of the reading and uploads the data,
Right.
on the mobile application. So there is a proof of
Right.
him doing the right job, and of course, this that has to be manually uploaded. But having said that, we are working towards improvising this, maybe automizing this a little more, so that we want to minimize the human intervention as much as possible, so as to minimize the chances of errors. But that said, it can't be completely.
I mean, it's very fascinating. I mean, I'm very curious to also understand when you kind of got into this segment, right? What was going on before guys like you got into it? In the sense that, like, I mean, as of today, if I say, just do a simple Google search of like home inspection, even like no broker would open, right? And nobroker.com would have like a home inspection. I mean, it's the sector is catching up now, right?
Right.
How was it when you kind of, I mean, was it like customers were like, what is this that you're selling? Like, was that also a pain point?
It still is.
Okay.
It still is, Nikhil. In fact, even now, after having spent 1.5 years in the business, customers are not really aware of the concept of home inspection, and that, in fact, is our biggest challenge.
Right.
As soon as they become aware of this, they're like, whoa, how I wish I knew this earlier. I had bought another property, I could have used you guys there. And so, I mean, if you look at our conversion rate, 1 out of 5 inquiries that we get gets converted into a deal for us. So, and all of this is remote.
Right.
We don't meet the customers, we don't do a Google session, we don't do anything. It's just a phone call. We explain to them the service and they book the service online.
Right. And so, from the buyer standpoint, right? I mean, they're probably seeing clear value. Like in your own example, $600 investment gave a 40,000 return. From the ultimate seller of the property, are they sort of open to the idea of their property being put under the microscope and then taking that document at face value and not pushing back? And India culturally, I mean, we're improving, but that narrative is report even I can fetch a report, man. Like big deal, right? Why is your report better than mine? Right? I mean, there is that thinking. So how do you see the pushback from the ultimate seller side? I mean, I understand that you're probably out of the ecosystem once you've done your job and it's between the buyer and seller, but sort of, the report has your name on it. So how do you sort of manage that?
Yeah, sure. So, we have 4 major use cases, in the B2C segment of our business, which is home inspection. First is customers who are getting the possession of their property from the builder. They've booked this inspection, this property maybe 4 or 5 years back, and now the builder is giving them the possession. So that's the first. Initially, we used to face a lot of pushback from the builder community. Right? They were like, who are you guys to, audit my work? I've been in the business for the last 20 years, 30 years. I know my, job. And who are you to check this? So we, of course, had to face some credibility issues, in terms of we're not really an authority in the business. Unfortunately, this industry is not even regulated in India, so we don't need a license to practice home inspection. So that's when we decided to rope in IIT Roorkee. Now IIT Roorkee is known to be the mecca of civil engineering in India. In fact, the whole of Asia, it's known for civil engineering. It started as a civil engineering college 175 years back. So I had access, thanks to being an alumni of that college. I reached out to the director and they were like, yes, this is a great initiative. Let's do something, it's in the national interest, to bring about some standardization to this that So we tied up with them, we partnered with them and, kind of redesigned the entire checklist, the entire process. And that was a very legit and a very strong reply that we could give to the builder community. That, hey, it's not me who's developed this, it's the IIT. Who's come up with this this process, this checklist. So we just following their protocols, and those were early days. But these days, the developers have started approaching us, and they're like, instead of checking the quality of my apartment from the customer side, and then submitting them a report with all the defects, why don't you do it for me?
Yeah.
And, we will do the desnagging and you can come do the reinspection again. Until you are satisfied, you don't issue us a certificate. But once you are satisfied, we want you to give us a certificate of quality. So from being pushed back by the builder community to being invited by the builder community has been a very big transition. So that's the first use case. Now, what what the question that you raised was with regards to the secondary market, where there are resale happening, 5 or 10-year-old properties getting sold again. So of course, the seller definitely doesn't want this inspection to be conducted because it's going to point out all the defects in the property and put the transaction into jeopardy. But the buyer, puts it as a precondition that, I'm going to buy this property only subject to a successful inspection. And like you said, we are out of the ecosystem. We don't care. Once we've given the report, it's between the buyer and the seller. So in most cases, there are some negotiations that this report helps the buyer negotiate a little bit more. But from the seller side, of course, we are not invited. So that's how it is.
And when you sort of give a report, right, is there a mathematical exercise done on what the value would be to actually fix it? What would it cost? And that's part one. Part two is when you know that, do you sort of also step in to help in that regard? Like, do you have tie-ups with guys who can actually fix it for them? Or is that something that you don't want to get too much into?
Sharath, very nice question. A very interesting question. In fact, this is exactly what is playing on our mind these days. So there are 3 stages to it. One is identifying the defect, right? Yeah. And then, of course, estimating the cost for fixing those defects. And then finally, the loop closes by actually fixing those defects, right? So while we do the cost estimation part informally, because as a part of our service, if you book an inspection with us, you also get a 30-day free consultation, a telephonic consultation where you can call us n number of times. There's no limit, to understand your report, to understand the root cause of the problem, how can it be fixed, so on and so forth, but telephonically, right? So we do give estimates, the cost estimates informally, casually. But we are considering developing a tool for automating this whole thing. You just enter the defect there. It's like a BOQ sort of a thing that can be generated. And with regards to fixing the defects, yes, very soon, maybe in the next couple of quarters, we will start empaneling certain vendors on our system, where if a customer wants to engage a vendor to fix these defects, we will patch them in. And of course, since they have gone through our quality checks, even the vendor has gone through a background check, the customer can be rest assured that yes, of course, his work will also get audited by us.
Yeah.
So that's on the cards, pretty much on the cards.
Very interesting.
It's I have a question, like a bit on the from a seller standpoint, right? Especially for a new project, right? Like you mentioned that builders are approaching PropChk to do an audit, and and basically there'll be some scoring methodology, and if it's high enough, then obviously they would use it also to, in a way, advertise and market their offering.
Yes,
correct?
absolutely.
Yeah, but like coming from the financial world, it's akin to a credit rating, right? And in case of rating, like one of the biggest issues in ratings are conflict management, right? Effectively, the corporate who's getting rated is paying the rating agency, and how do you control that? Do you refuse business on that segment? If you think that it's not really, because at the end of the day, the word gets out pretty quickly, right? If there's a bad project on which, say a good certification has been given, right? There's a reputational risk that comes with it. So how do you navigate that? Because on one end, obviously there's a revenue unlock opportunity, but on the other end, there's a long-term reputational management angle that needs to be pursued.
Right. So, before we take up such projects, we make it absolutely clear that, so first of all, we're not rating them.
Right.
We are just issuing them a certificate if they pass the bare minimum standards that we have set, for the quality. So, and those standards are predefined, so we tell them, this is what we're going to check. This is the tolerance limit. This is up to which I'm going to pass this project or, fail this element. So if you want the certificate, I'll do the inspection. I'll give you the defects. You fix them to my satisfaction. If you're able to do that, and if you're able to get above 90%, in our basis, the algorithm that we have designed, we issue you the certificate. Else we don't. So there's no negative certificate, or there's no negative rating that we give to any developer. So there's no harm as such.
Right.
It's just that if they don't comply with our standards, they don't get the certificate from us. That's all. So
Does that happen on and off?
So we are, in fact, this is a very new thing for us. We've
Right.
just started doing this off late with a couple of developers. So the ones who have the right intent, definitely, because see, the real estate industry is very interesting. So these developers that we call so-called developers, even if it's the biggest names like DLF or Lodha or Prestige, Shobha, these are, they're not builders. They're more of project managers.
Yes.
They arrange for the land from somewhere. They arrange for the capital from somewhere. They, hire consultants, third-party consultants like architects or structural consultants. They bring a team together to execute.
Effectively, the job work is also done on contract, right? Effectively.
Yes, it's all contractors, right?
Right.
There's multiple contractors working on a project.
Right.
So even the developers don't really have a problem because, when they are paying the developer, construction quality is basically dependent on two factors. One is the quality of material used, and second is the quality of workmanship.
Yeah.
While the developer can control the quality of material, he cannot control the quality of workmanship just because of the simple fact that there are multiple contractors, subcontractors, petty contractors working on the same site.
Yeah.
Right? So consistency in workmanship is almost impossible to achieve, given the scale of these projects. So what happens is the developer has the right intent to deliver a world-class product or a quality product to his customers. It's just because of the workmanship issue, it's probably not possible. So that's where, even the developer is happy to onboard us because, there is this retention amount of the contractor that is lying with the developer.
Right.
He's going to release that only until he's satisfied, right? So that's where, these kind of developers kind of welcome us to sort of help them deliver this quality work. They call it a pre-delivery inspection.
Right.
So it's like a win-win for all. The developer is happy, the customer is happy. Customer can trust the developer even more because it's a third-party inspection and it's not their internal audit. Right. So, and of course, like you rightly said, the developer uses this as a marketing tool as well. That we are so concerned, we are so conscious about quality that we've hired a third-party agency.
Right.
So yeah, that's how it's working.
Interesting.
And when you sort of go to so many houses and you're running your program, you're running your algorithm. You're accumulating a fair amount of data, right? From each household. Like, what's that? What is there a direct use case that you see from that? Because if you go in an apartment complex, all houses are the same, but sort of you go to different houses, even in South and Northern India, right? Different styles of making houses are there. What is that data worth? Something like, do you think that can be extrapolated into creating a product of sorts, or is there anything that you think about?
Yeah. Yes, like you rightly said, we are collecting a lot of data. Yeah. But right now, we don't know. We're not figured out how to monetize that data.
Yeah.
But that data can definitely help us in improving our processes even further. Maybe automating to a large extent. Maybe for an ML or AI program to run on our system, we need a lot of data. So that's where that's the intent with which we are collecting this data and analyzing it to an extent. But for all revenue generation purposes, I'm not very sure how to monetize this. But I'm sure we will figure that out once we are there. So,
and sort of earlier, when I was asking like partnerships of guys who can actually fix few things, right? The reason obviously is the intuitive one where you need to get it fixed, so you need it. But generally, when people buy a house, they invest an additional level of capex, if you say, to do things to their house, right? Like
interiors,
interiors and whatnot. And you've got a foot in the door in terms of exactly what the dimensions are. You probably have it on the map, which bed goes where. You can figure that out, right? Because of the exercise you've done. So, is that something that you think I can sort of have some kind of a design or I don't want to say construction, but sort of a design bent to my service offering, a value-added service of sorts, to sort of pull that in. And, is that an angle that is something that you guys explore or worth exploring? Again, business lines, admittedly, but just to get a sense.
Yeah, sure. So not directly, but indirectly. So we definitely don't intend getting into design and execution. Well, never say never, but right at the moment, we don't have any such plans. But we definitely can partner with the right players, because see, like you rightly said, we have the foot in the door and we have the trust of the customer because the customer has engaged us to find the defect. So clearly we are on his side. He's paying us for it.
Yeah.
And he trusts, the customer blindly trusts us because, we've shown him the real condition of his property. So any recommendation that we make would also be highly trusted, but of course comes with a very big responsibility, So that is where we can leverage that relationship that we've already built with the customer and probably outsource or recommend such work to some of the big players, whether it is designers or because we are the first ones to enter that ecosystem.
Even before the transaction has taken place, right? So
even before the transaction is actually concluded. So that's where we say things like, okay, here is an interior designer. I think you should, I recommend this guy. So customer is likely to trust, given of course, the pricing part of it. If that works out, then yes, there is a business to be made there. Also, maybe much larger than the home inspection directly in terms of revenue. So yeah.
So Saurabh, like,
how do you sort of go ahead, Nikhil?
No, so carry on.
How do you see a sort of growth? It's sort of adding more and more homes under your belt, doing more and more inspections. That seems to be the obvious growth drivers. But is that going to be the focus, near-term focus, to sort of just do what you're doing and do it more, expand the footprint, and not worry too much about getting into lateral things? And is that sort of the idea for near-term growth?
Yeah. So in the short term, yes, we there's a massive opportunity at hand. So if I give you some numbers, there are around 2.5 lakh units, new homes getting delivered in the top 8 cities of India, right? And you can just double this number if you consider that secondary transactions also happening. There are almost equal number of secondary transactions that happen, right? So that's around 5 lakh homes getting transacted in a year in just the top 8 cities, right? Yeah. So that's if we say we calculate this with let's say 10,000 rupees as an average inspection cost.
Yeah,
we're talking about a revenue potential of around 500 crores here. So, and this is just the new homes, right? Mm-hmm. Or just the residential part. Mm-hmm. I haven't considered the retail aspect. I haven't considered commercial properties, hospitality, hotel projects, medical healthcare units, in fact, government projects, a lot of institutional buildings and all. So our near-term or short-term focus is going to be increasing this awareness by virtue of our B2C business. And B2C is like the watering hole for our B2B business, right? For example, there are developers who are reaching out and giving us 1,000, 2,000 apartments to inspect in one shot. But that was possible only because we inspected 50 units of their ongoing project, and we probably caused some problem or some issues to them. So they were like, let's just catch them at the beginning itself, and use their services to our advantage because we have the intent, we have the right intent to deliver the right quality. So let's do that. So that's the short-term focus, definitely.
In terms of, I mean, it's very interesting because you obviously like the sale market is obviously a very, very viable angle. Is rental market also something that you look at? Because effectively, we keep on reading that there are like 15 million vacant homes, right, in urban India. And obviously there's an issue of low rental yields and landlords are not very incentivized to keep upkeep. But rental is something that every 11 months or every 24 months, there is a churn and there is a fair amount of, wear and tear which is happening in these properties. What's your view on that segment?
And fight over the deposit that you pay up.
Absolutely. Very good question. In fact, this is our third use case. After the sale transactions, whether it's primary or secondary. This is the third use case where both the landlords and the tenants, it's solving both their problems. The problem of the landlord, like you rightly said, there are 15 million households that are lying vacant. What is the biggest reason is the landlords are very sensitive, towards the upkeep of their property. They're the owners of the property, and the biggest problem of the tenants is that their security deposit more often than not gets stuck. It's never refunded. And if we can simply solve this problem by conducting an inspection at the time of the rental transaction and at the time of the tenant vacating the house, so that in a very fair and transparent manner you can determine what damage done to the property by the tenant, of course, and accordingly the security deposit can be accordingly the cost of damages and repairs can be pulled out from the deposit in a very fair and transparent manner. So we have started getting these inquiries, and we have conducted, in fact, a few inspections for landlords as well as for tenants. For tenants, it's again, before committing. See, if it's a 10 or 15,000 rupees per month kind of property, the tenants are not really interested.
Yeah,
right.
It has to be.
For properties worth like let's say 75, 80,000 a month, or maybe 1 lakh a month, with a rental of 1 lakh a month, they're committing to spending 11 lakhs over the next 1 year.
Yeah.
So before making that commitment, they don't mind spending that 10,000 or 11,000 rupees to get it inspected.
But is that, like, for example, this was a pretty common norm in the UK, where I kind of spent a fair amount of time, right? That I would never even see my landlord. Like I must have changed 4 houses. Like I had no visibility on who my landlord is. It will always be through some lettings agency or a tenancy agency. And when I would like go into a new property, there will be like an inventory check. There will be stuff like what you guys are doing in terms of the suitability of the property. And when I check out again, there will be an inventory check, and based on that. But the thing was, there was another intermediary in the middle, right? The tenancy agency, which was kind of doing all of those things. In India, because effectively the rental yields when it comes to the residential sector is like 2%, 3%. Effectively, and asset values are so inflated, landlords are generally not incentivized to keep an agency which will take like a month's rent out as fee to provide this service. Do you see a change there happening? Obviously there's an rising urbanization a tailwind which we saw in the western part of the world probably 30 years back. I'm sure it's bound to catch up here as well, right? In terms of lifestyles, in terms of people preferring rental properties, etc. But on ground, do you see that change happening at the pace that you would like to see, or you think that's more of a 5-year or a 10-year kind of a view?
Yeah, so there are a lot of property management companies mushrooming in India as well. A lot of them actually. So most of these big brokerage houses are getting into property management. And when we say property management, is more to do with rental property management, where rent collection, finding the tenant, verifying the background, so on and so forth, and of course maintaining the property. Is again maybe a periodic inspection is part of the management process. So yes, this is picking up. In fact, more so for the NRI owners, NRI property owners, because they badly need this service. And but for local owners who are locally present here, well, we are getting there, but yeah, it's going to take. My view on this would be at least we are at least 3 to 5 years away from this being a common practice.
Right.
So this is again we are exploring some tie-ups with some property management companies as well, where they can outsource this. One interesting point on the rental part of it. See, one of the biggest problems of the tenant while he's looking out for a property is he goes onto these property portals like Magic Breaks, 99 Acres and all, and he sees pictures of the property which are not verified.
Yeah,
maybe in the pictures the property would look really good, but when they end up visiting the property, they're like, this is not what I saw on the internet. So this is something that we can really solve, because in addition to a PDF format of the report that we give, we also give a digital twin of the property, right? So digital twin is nothing but a 360-degree photography of the property where all the defects are pinpointed, right? So it's like you can move around, you can just check out the property, the hotspots, you can just move around, just check how the property looks, the view from the balcony, so on and so forth. So while this is not the intent of doing this 360 degrees, not to show it not to make it look fancy, the property, but it can be used. It has an alternate use of, instead of listing pictures, you can list a 360-degree file, and the tenants can actually get to know, can understand the property better, and there may be very few surprises when they actually visit the property. So yeah, this is where we can actually add value.
I was asking, I mean, if you kind of delve a bit deeper into the revenue model or the business model end of things, what are the principal, line items that come into your P&L? I mean, you obviously charge a certain amount, like you mentioned, 10,000 for every report that you issue. You have a B2C business. You also have a B2B business. In the B2C business, I assume it's purely residential. In the B2B, you're also looking at commercial, right? And I'm assuming there's some amount of advisory or consulting element that also comes on top. And do you look at like the report generation in a different way in a B2B versus B2C from a monetization standpoint? Like, is there like a subscription type play there, or so just kind of give us a bit of a color. That would be very helpful.
Yeah, so you've understood the B2C. It's very straightforward. We conduct inspections, we give a report, we charge for it, right? On the B2B front, there are multiple things. So we do project audits, right? So we did something for Tata Steel. They developed they had constructed a medical college, Tata Manipal College, in Jamshedpur, and we conducted the entire building's audit. So that is one. Then there are multi-stage inspections that we offer. So rather than taking a corrective action, they can take a preventive approach towards, while the construction is going on, during the construction phase itself, if we can go check out the property at, critical milestones and point out the defects right then and there. So the ultimate product would, turn out to be almost defect free. Right. So that's another multi-stage inspection is another service, which again depends, our pricing depends on the size of the project and the complexity in the project. We also do, a complete HOTO, like handover, takeover, where, the project initially is being handled by the developer. And then once it's, it's been 3 or 4 years, the Residents Welfare Association would take over the project, from the builder. So that's where we can conduct an audit. In fact, we are doing one in Gurgaon for a very large community, again, a Tata project. So, where we are auditing all their MEP assets for their functionality, for their compliance, design, safety, and efficiency. So, so these are some of the other revenue models for us. And of course, the margins are much more in B2B as compared to B2C. And yeah, I mean, right now, I think we're in a happy space. So,
and I mean, do you? I mean, this has a. I mean, considering that you also personally come from a consulting background, this business also has a very deep kind of consulting type of a flavor, right? And you yourself mentioned that. I mean, it might not be a tech-centric play; it's more of a tech-enabled type of a play. How do you see? I mean, what's the idea in terms of raising capital in the future, or you are thinking that do you want to go the VC route, because this doesn't sound like the most natural VC type of a play, right? At the end of the day, because I mean, it's kind of feet on the street model. And from there, obviously, the typical argument comes on scale, etc., etc. We all know that spiel for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. And on the other end of the segment is the idea to kind of grow iteratively, and then probably once you are at a stage where you want to just raise more institutional growth capital, where cash flows become more important. And I'm assuming in your business, from a cash flow standpoint, it must be much more. It's not a burn model, so you must be making profits on everything that you're selling, right? And obviously, at the right scale, that becomes interesting more for a growth capital player. So, how are you viewing, the capital raising journey for a business such as yours?
Yeah, sure. So, it has been 2 months since we are operationally profitable now. So we're not burning anymore. From a fundraising perspective, like you rightly said, there has to be a certain scale, to the business. The way we are intentionally running this show right now is by having people on our payrolls, right? All the inspectors are on our payroll so that we can control the process better, right?
And these are mostly civil engineers, I guess, right?
These are all civil engineers. They have to be civil engineers. That's a prerequisite, and with at least 5 years, 3 to 5 years experience.
Okay. Yeah.
So we train them in our Hyderabad facility, and then we deploy them in their various cities. So we're present in all the major cities in India. So from a scaling perspective, the plan is as follows. One is we're going to go the freelance model, right? So where we'll get the customers. The technology platform will be ours. The equipment will be ours. We just need people to just kind of execute it for us, right? And then of course, with this freelance model, we can literally go to every city in India without really worrying too much about efficiency and utilizing our manpower to the fullest. So whenever there's business, we give it to them. When there's no business, it's more like a side gig. So it's like a Uber kind of a model where we are providing the car even to the driver. We just need drivers, right? Going forward, there's something called remotely assisted inspections that we would want to shoot for, which is nothing but, essentially what are we using in our inspections? They're just two senses: sight, right? That's one, and your sound, your hearing. These are the two senses, and that can be replaced with a camera or with a mobile phone, let's say, for that matter. Where imagine I give you the camera, a mobile phone, you switch on the camera and you start talking to somebody, and I keep guiding you. Okay, Nikhil, now you go to this room, use this equipment. Can you just plug it in and see the reading? Can you just let me know the reading? And there's somebody remotely recording all the readings,
right?
And and generating the report. So if that model becomes successful, we'll try it out locally. If that becomes successful, then there is no stopping us. This becomes an international gameplay where sitting here, we can conduct inspections in Canada or US. It's like the outsourcing of inspections to the Indian market. So that's something that we would want to experiment with. I'm not sure if we can really give the price advantage there, because the manpower cost is heavy, and in fact, even logistics are quite expensive in the West. So, but yeah, that's the plan. We definitely want to give it a try. So yeah, so that's where the scale would come, and then it becomes an investable business. That's where we definitely would require to raise capital, and of course, this becomes a interesting business for the VCs also.
Right. So the idea here is to kind of grow and maybe bootstrap to take credit and scale iteratively, and only once that inflection point arrives, you're gonna kind of tap the institutional PE/VC market.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. So in fact, very interesting things are happening these days. So it's like, home inspection is a technical word. It's very well understood in the West. In India, nobody knows what is home inspection. It's often confused with car inspections also. When we say you want to sell your car, we get a free home inspection. So it's not like, they're not inspecting your car home. They're actually coming to your home to inspect your car.
Right.
People have started using words like "मेरे को घर का PropChk कराना है." So it's like, the word, the name that we've used for our company is, or rather, we got lucky to a founder's domain, and also maybe the idea came at the right time. The name is quite interesting, and it's kind of synonymous with the business that we do. And people have started using this. I want to get my house PropChked, So, and that's what gave us the idea of coming up with a newspaper advertisement also on PropChk. So it's like PropChk kiya ke, So once we become a household name, so for example, we often call water heaters as geysers. Now, geyser is not, geyser is the name of a brand, one of the first brands that launched water heaters, right? But everyone is like, I've got 2 geysers at home or whatever, it's just geyser. It's not, or maybe Godrej ki almari. It's not Godrej ki almari. It's more of a steel almirah, right? So like that, we also want to become synonymous with this industry. Like, PropChk, we're going to get a house PropChked. So once we reach that point, maybe, that's when I would probably consider reaching out to VCs, and maybe VCs would want to reach out to us, once we reach there. So yeah,
I have a feeling you'll get some cricketers and Bollywood guys, and they're gonna use this one-liner, and that's gonna bring the credibility to the entire process, right?
Yeah, I mean, why not? We did have some idea around this when getting somebody to kind of be a brand ambassador, but let's make some more money and then we'll probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the 20% month-over-month growth contract. So growth is already there. I saw that on one of your news articles.
Yeah, we're growing at a great pace. Yeah, I'll talk a little about the growth. So, it took us 6 months to hit our first 100 inspections, and then it was 4, then 2 months, then 1 month, and now last month we did around 350, 375 odd inspections. So, we are almost touching the 400 mark per month. So we've done close to 2,000 inspections already. So, and we are growing organically every month. There's not much of efforts, honestly, that we are making. It's all coming to us very easily. And but this is the time to actually, kind of hit the pedal and go to the next orbit. So yeah.
Exciting stuff, and we're fairly sure that you will sort of continue to accelerate, and we'll be watching from the sidelines and wishing for all the best. And it was very interesting to hear the story. It's a very different company from a lot of typical guys that we get, which are sort of VC design, a lot of fintech, and we've had some.
We are sick of fintechs, it seems.
Yeah, so this is a nice different business, and we like cash flow generating businesses. So it's good to hear the story.
Thank you, Sharath.
No, absolutely. Saurabh, thanks a lot for your time. This is very educational, and we have almost I think hit 50 minutes in our chat. And as I said, real estate is something on which even idiots like us can talk a lot. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and wish you all the best. And this is Nikhil Arora. I have with me Sharad Tupron signing off.